unapproachable, and infinitely varied and colourful, butterflies never cease to fascinate and impress us. And yet these exquisite beings begin life as little more than worm-like creatures, ever-hungry caterpillars that munch their way through our gardens. What is the secret behind their curious lifestyle? And why do they use their wings not just for flight, but as a canvas for some of the most striking patterns in nature? A garden shed, an unlikely place for butterflies, and yet it offers warmth and protection during the colder months. A red admiral has overwintered here and now stretches its wings as it wakes from a long sleep. It tries to head towards the light. At last, guided by the fresh air, it makes its escape. The buds of the blackthorn bush are about to open, but within its thorny branches, something else is breaking out of its cocoon. A small emperor moth. It climbs up the stem to pump up its wings. The feathery antennae indicate that it's a male. He will use them to pick up the scent of a mate. The larger cocoons are those of the females. They will emerge a few days later. The female has the same large eye spots as the male, but not the broad antennae. And at the end of her abdomen, a special gland emits an enticing perfume. It will attract males from several kilometers away. The small, brightly colored males waste little time. They have no mouthparts and can't feed, so they need to mate before their energy reserves run out. A peacock butterfly has no such problems. It can refuel at any time and has come to the blackthorn bush to feed on its sweet nectar. The female emperor moth will lay her eggs within hours of mating. Unlike the males, she only really becomes active at night. Under cover of darkness, she lays her eggs on a branch within the hawthorn, close to where she mated. Each month sees the arrival of new butterflies. The common brimstone has come to this wet woodland to breed. During the mating season, males defend territories against rivals. But in the excitement, innocent passers-by sometimes get caught in the crossfire. The female deposits her eggs on an alder buckthorn bush. The unassuming tree is crucial to the survival of her caterpillars when they hatch. The alder buckthorn is the sole food plant of brimstone caterpillars, so plant and butterfly often go hand in hand. After 2 weeks, the empty egg case is left behind. The caterpillar is already munching away on the leaves of its host plant and will increase its weight 2,000-fold over the next month. To avoid detection by predators, it often rests along the midrib of a leaf, where it's difficult to spot. But not all caterpillars are fussy eaters. Some have a more varied diet. The hairy hatchlings of the vapour moth first consume the remains of their egg cases. Then they spin a silk thread and climb up to the nearest leaves. In this case, the leaves of a small birch tree. The vapour moth is widespread and common across Europe. Feeding on a great variety of plants, it can live in all kinds of habitats. One of the most widespread and successful plants is our common stinging nettle. The stinging leaves are in fact packed with nutrients. They contain more protein and minerals than most. And they're the perfect baby food for caterpillars. The caterpillars of the peacock butterfly feed together as a group, stripping off the leaves one at a time. There's safety in numbers, and the squirming mass confuses predators. Rows of black spines also act as a deterrent. The caterpillars are being watched. The barred warbler has not been put off. She has too many hungry mouths to feed. A red admiral has also chosen a nettle to deposit her eggs. But she lays them singly, one at a time. It takes about 10 days for the small caterpillar inside to develop. Once it has hatched, it spins a little tent around itself and begins to feast on the nettle's leaves. It might appear that plants have little defense against the tiny chomping mouths, but recent research has revealed otherwise. Plants, it seems, can detect vibrations made by caterpillars feeding on neighboring plants. They respond by producing defensive chemicals and stop an attack on their own leaves. After 3 to 4 weeks, the caterpillar is ready to pupate. It draws together the edges of a leaf and forms a tent around itself. Here, it will be safe from predators and can change into its adult form. Drawing fine silk threads from a special gland in its mouth, it glues the leaf together. Finally, the caterpillar sheds its skin one last time and turns into a pupa, or chrysalis. A small tortoiseshell caterpillar is also disappearing into its cocoon. Within a few hours, its case has hardened and turned into an exquisite sculpture with a metallic golden sheen. Barely 2 weeks later, and the pupal case splits open, releasing the perfectly formed adult butterfly. The insect's body still needs to harden in the air, and the feeding tube, which is split in two, must be zipped together. Like the admiral and peacock butterfly, the tortoiseshell depends on the nettles as food for its larvae. The stinging leaves are in fact a defense against grazing animals, but they make an ideal habitat for insects. The caterpillars can safely move between the spines, and there's little danger of being eaten by a grazer. Even agricultural crops attract their own kinds of butterflies. A field of cabbage appeals to one of our most common species, the cabbage white. The caterpillars are the bane of farmers everywhere and can decimate entire fields. But where pesticides are not put to use, natural predators will soon come to their aid. Wasps need protein-rich insect food for their own larvae, so a juicy caterpillar makes a perfect meal. She bites into the plump body and sucks up its inner fluids. With a belly full of protein juice, she flies back to the nest. She is greeted by the other workers and regurgitates the green caterpillar pulp to feed the larvae. Not everyone is happy to have wasps in their garden, but those who are can be assured they'll help control insect pests. Unlike their caterpillars, most butterflies are not fussy eaters and will happily feed on a variety of garden flowers. The nectar-rich blossoms of the lilac tree are a magnet for all kinds of butterflies, like the European map, the painted lady butterfly, and the red admiral, a frequent visitor to our gardens. Hovering above a flower is the aptly named hummingbird hawk moth. Its smaller cousin, the bee hawk moth, flies in a similar way. But there is one hawk moth that is after something sweeter than nectar. The death's head hawk moth has picked up the alluring scent of honey. But getting past thousands of armed soldiers is no easy task. Astonishingly, the large moth simply walks into the hive, straight past the seemingly unconcerned bees. The cunning thief mimics the scent of the bees, tricking them into thinking it's one of their own. It's the perfect adaptation for a life of crime. And chemical camouflage is not its only tool. A short, thick feeding tube is useful for piercing the honeycomb to suck out the sugary liquid. And a thick skin helps in case you get caught. It protects against the punishing stings. The hawk moth has mastered the perfect honey heist. The death's head hawk moth is one of our largest moths and also one of the craftiest. After 3 months of gorging on blackthorn leaves, the caterpillar of the emperor moth has become huge. Special salivary glands on its lower lip now produce fine strands of liquid silk, which dry and harden in the air. The caterpillar spins an intricate mesh of fibers around itself, entombing its body in a silken cocoon. It will stay inside this protective casing until the following spring. All across the countryside, in every bush and tree, the caterpillars of moths and butterflies are preparing to change into their adult forms. Some are transforming not just their own appearance, but that of their surroundings. Wispy white drapes cover the tree trunks and bushes. The larvae of the ermine moth are busy spinning. Underneath their shroud-like web, the small caterpillars can feed undisturbed. Only when they emerge do they run the gauntlet of hungry beaks.